There's a light in the sky, rising in the air. There's a feeling so strong. It's time to light the fire, like a bright shining light. Learn, getting more out of life. Love, sharing time with friends, feeling so strong.
Hello, welcome to the House of Wellness. I'm Luke Darcy and thrilled as always to be here alongside my great friend Joe Stanley. Welcome, Joe.
Darcy, it's awesome to see you again. And while most of Australia is celebrating or surviving school holidays, it's great to be back here working in the health space that both you and I enjoy so much.
Yeah, most states are slap bang in the middle of term 3 break. And Joe, we've been homeschooling for months now, almost the entire year. So the holidays, like everything else, sort of has blended into the year, hasn't it? Hasn't felt much different for me.
It's true, but thank goodness for the footy, Darcy. I'm loving it.
Well, without it, I think a lot of us would have been very, very sad. It's been sensational. Can you believe this year's grand final, I've said it before, is going to be held in Queensland for the first time ever. Never, ever been held outside of Victoria. I'm a bit excited about it. Nighttime grand final, bit of change.
Yeah.
We're also going to catch up with the team from the Carlton Football Club. They're doing some great work in the gender equality space, so looking forward to that as well.
Yes, while the world is yet to beat the coronavirus, every day we're presented with possible solutions and breakthroughs, which gives hope that life can return to what it used to be sooner rather than later.
Yeah, there's lots of research projects underway related to treatment, protection, diagnosis and innovation to help us live with the virus in much the same way that we've lived in the past with the seasonal flu. But in the meantime, our best weapon is identifying people who have the virus before they spread it, Joe.
And that's where the dogs come in. Dogs are now being trained here and overseas to sniff out COVID-19. They use sweat samples and so far the results have been incredible.
Thanks to the efforts of researchers from the University of Adelaide, Australia is now helping lead the global charge. Well, this is really exciting. We know dogs are remarkable creatures and they've been used in many areas to detect many things. I suppose it does make sense that COVID-19 is a possibility. Can you tell me who came up with this idea?
So this work began in Paris. There are a few groups around the world that have thought about using detector dogs to find people infected with COVID-19. But Professor Dominique Grandjean in Paris got together some dogs and went through the proof of principle to show that they used a whole lot of positive sweat samples, imprinted the dogs on those, and then tested them afterwards. And the dogs were remarkably good at picking up the positive samples.
Which is really encouraging. As you said, it's still in the early stages, but as someone who works in this area, are you confident that we're going to have dogs effectively being able to pick up COVID-19?
I'm 100% confident. So we are part of an international collaboration which includes France, Belgium, the United Arab Emirates. And in the United Arab Emirates, they already have dogs deployed that are working in this area. So, yes, absolutely confident that we can make it work in Australia.
Why are dogs so good at this? Obviously, their sense of smell, but what other factors make dogs perfect for this work?
So it's not just the sense of smell. Yes, dogs do have a fantastic sense of smell. But I think it's because dogs were the first species that we domesticated, and we've lived side by side with dogs for probably more than 15,000 years. So dogs have adapted themselves to living close to us. They can pick up our signals better than any other species. And we've also learnt that we can train dogs. Mostly dogs do want to please us. So I think it's that feature rather than the sense of smell that makes them perfect for this kind of work.
And where do you see these dogs being deployed mainly in Australia?
We can see them being incredibly helpful at borders, at airports with international travellers when they finally do come in hospitals, in aged care facilities. You could screen people going in, particularly the health workers. And in Victoria, it's obvious now that the health workers are really at high risk of picking up such an infectious virus. And rather than them needing testing daily, you could have a dog that screens them coming in and out to make sure that they haven't picked up the infection.
When you think that dogs are already being used to detect diabetes and some cancers, they're trained in explosives and search and rescue, it all makes sense, really.
Yes, Joe, that's right. And Dr Annelise Charbeur has been coordinating the Australian arm of the alliance with France. Let's hear what she has to say. Now, Annelise, I'm assuming, given your French background playing a key role, was it you that decided this is something that Australia can do. Did you bring this collaboration together?
Yes, I did. I used to work with a French team before on previous projects, and I was really looking forward to knowing if this tool was going to be a relevant tool. And as soon as they told me, yes, it is working, I decided that it was a good thing to bring in Australia.
How about training the animals? How difficult is it? What sort of training is involved?
It's not very difficult, but it does require a very good trainer. So you need to give them positive sample and making them understand that that's what they are looking for. So each time they smell a positive sample, they need to be rewarded. So you need people that are really obviously competent, but also dogs that are really, that got a good nose.
So what breed of dogs are you preferring to use for COVID-19 detection?
We are going to use mainly Labradors and German Shepherd. I think Labradors are going to have a key role because they are well accepted by the community, and it's easy to have people around Labradors. So, yeah, we are going to focus on Labradors.
Like all things, Annalise, we're impatient. We want these things to happen quickly. How long do you think before we can have dogs detecting COVID-19 in Australia?
This is a very good question. I think we hope to start deployment trial at the end of the year and beginning of next year. When they're going to be fully used really depends on our government and if they want to use this tool to help with the pandemic response.
We couldn't be more excited, more proud of the work that you're doing, and we wish you all the best. Thanks for telling us about it today.
Thank you very much for having me.
Well, when you watch that, fair to say my dog Dennis, Joe, and your dog Daisy have got to lift their game a little bit.
Oh my God.
Not putting in enough at all.
Look, my dog Daisy is a Labrador. She's very good at sniffing things out, largely leftovers under the fridge. That's her great skill.
That's where she's at. Now, did you see the story on Bear, the 5-year-old cattle dog who played a massive role in saving koalas during the bushfires this year? Brilliant story.
Oh, so beautiful, wearing his little red socks to protect his paws. He was actually a rescue dog that was brought to detection dogs for conservation, and that's exactly what he did. Bears is just one of the many hero dogs honoured each year, and now it looks like we'll be adding some COVID sniffer dogs to that list. Great story. Up next, as Australia looks at how to best care for the elderly amongst the pandemic, one Queensland town is fighting simply to keep its seniors from leaving town. That story's up next on the House of Wellness. You're watching the House of Wellness. One of the most heartbreaking things to happen during the coronavirus is families being separated, particularly older family members who've been forced to stay isolated or locked down in aged care facilities, Joe. Not being able to drop in and visit has been really tough, both for family members and for the aged care residents. So imagine if that was the case all of the time. Yeah, for one small rural Queensland town, that is the reality. Kilkeven only has about 700 residents, which is just the way the locals like it. They love their small town. But what's missing is an aged care facility, Joe. As you'd imagine, they're not taking that lying down. The locals have come up with a solution and are pushing their local council to get on board. Take a look.
The place is ingrained in me, and as you get older, at my age, I'm 91, you start to worry a little bit about what will happen to you for my remaining years.
After 9 decades on the land, Ian Fitzgerald has dug his heels into the soil of Kilkeven. The small rural town with a population of about 700 is a 3-hour drive northwest of Brisbane. With a generous boulevard and all the familiar trappings of a country town, it has the added protection of the Great Dividing Range and the beautiful Wide Bay Creek.
You've seen the creek here, well, that's my Bondi Beach there.
But what the town doesn't have is a good aged care option. For that, residents are expected to move to the nearest town 50 kilometres away. So while Ian is still active and living independently on his cattle property, if he decides to transition to an assisted living facility, he'll have to leave Kilkeven for good.
So you leave your environment totally behind, and not only that, You leave behind the people you know, your friends.
Ian knows firsthand the impact this separation has for the people left behind. Pauline and Ian were married for 60 years, but when Pauline developed Parkinson's, they were forced to part when she moved into aged care.
It was a dreadful decision. It's 4 years today since Pauline passed away, and I still feel guilty about her having to go to a nursing home. Thank goodness I didn't really put the white flag up. Pauline herself, the doctor and family, it was an unanimous decision that she'd have to move on. If you could excuse the term, it was gut-tearing, and it still is.
It seems that we've been forced to make big ad hoc decisions when we're at our most vulnerable.
A fighting spirit is hereditary in the Fitzgerald family. Pauline and Ian's daughter Rosemary is leading the fight for a local aged facility to open in Kilkevin.
We've got to stop regarding aged care or health care even as a commodity and look at it as a care opportunity.
The council already owns the land for the project, but they need government funding to get it built. The plan is to build self-contained, disabled access homes for residents who can no longer live on large acreages but don't want to leave the town. As 40% of the town's population is over 55, it's becoming a pressing issue.
There's no one talking about wanting to leave. They all talk about fearing having to go. So we really need to address that. And so that's what I'm advocating.
I suppose I've known nothing different, really. I've grown up here in my schooling years, and all the young people like Mavis and I were going to the dances and things, and you meet people through your lifetime and you just think to yourself, oh, I'd miss so much.
At 82 years young, Dawn Choate has no plans to slow down. She still runs a store in town and is a regular volunteer at the local museum.
And my little great-grandson says to me sometimes, Grandma, are you going to Brisbane? I say, no, darling, I'm not going to Brisbane. It's just one of those things, when you're brought up in a small country town, it becomes part of you. And I think that's the important part about it. You do what you have to do, and you look out for your mates and things like that to see that, and see that they're all happy and contented. And that's very important, I think.
There were people in their 80s and 90s who were and still are volunteering madly, contributing every week to this community, and that was actually a key part of their terrific health, overall health and well-being.
The camaraderie is felt through the whole town. Even the younger residents, like shop owner Katie McCallum, all value those who form the backbone of the community.
Well, the community is made up of people. That is it. It doesn't matter what the building's like. It doesn't matter where we are geographically. The community exists because of the people that are in it. And if we allow older people to be taken from the community they grew up in, the place that they gave all of their life to make the town that it is today, we're really, I don't have a word for it.
Well, it's especially important because so many of us are living until we're in our 80s and 90s. And I would hate, I'm in my 60s, I would hate to be told in 20 years' time, well, you're past your use-by date. Sorry, girl, off you go to Gympie or somewhere else, because it's not convenient for this society to worry about your particular cohort anymore. You've had your turn.
And Rosie is determined not to let that happen to her father, Ian.
It would be just devastating for him, but it would also be devastating for his 4 children who know how much staying locally means to him.
If I were to go into care in a big city or even a mid-sized city, it's definitely a foreign land. And that's not denigrating the people who would look after me. It's just they're different people. They're strangers.
That story just breaks my heart. To be separated from your life partner of 60 years is so sad. And the update is that the council have initiated a committee who are in the process of confirming that all the residents within a 30-kilometre radius are on board with the plan. Plus, students from QUT and Griffiths unis are also investigating the planning process and will be interviewing residents about the challenges of living longer and better in rural areas like Kilkeven. So we'll keep you updated on how things progress there.
Yeah, and Australia's Royal Commission into Aged Care Quality and Safety has been looking into the issues surrounding our elderly for the past 2 years. Let's hope that investigation and the recent events surrounding aged care in this country see some positive change very soon. For me, Joe, if that's one of the upshots we get out of this is shining a spotlight on aged care and more humanely looking after our elderly, that's got to be a good thing.
Absolutely.
Still to come, meet the crime scene cleaners who are scrubbing coronavirus from schools and airports. That's coming up next on the House of Wellness. Well, if 2020 has taught us anything, it's to expect the unexpected, Joe. And being a parent has taught me that especially.
Yes, kids definitely have a great way of grounding us, that is for sure. But accepting and dealing with change, especially when it affects every aspect of our lives, it's really tough. I mean, that pretty much describes 2020 entirely, right?
Yeah, well said, Joe. So what better way to throw us all a lifeline in how to ride the waves of uncertainty than life coaches Paul and Tammy Roos.
Change is hard. I get it. You know, most of us don't like going through life with a lot of change. It's incredibly challenging and it brings up a lot of feelings for us. It brings up that, oh, you know, like I'm not in control. But that's, I guess, one of the things that we're being asked to do right now in this current environment is that we're needing to surrender. And it is challenging. So I'm not saying for any of us that it's something that comes easy for us. But when we ease into a sense of, I have to control what I can control, and one of those things is going to be about how I respond. When we get caught up in thinking that things have to go according to our plan, that's when we get challenged, because our beliefs really start to come into play here. We start to almost get caught up in what's right, what's wrong, but it's according to what we feel and what we think. But change is constant. Life is truly in a constant state of flux. What's true today is not true tomorrow. A perfect example of this is a river analogy. And we know that the water that's passing us in this moment is not going to be the water that passes us in the next 10 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour, or tomorrow. So we have to really consider that everything that is happening is moving, but there's tremendous strength in that, or a sense of support too, because whatever we are experiencing, and if we are being challenged, we know that that's going to pass. So consider the power of surrendering, change your mindset, and expect the unexpected.
Haven't we all heard that comment, expect the unexpected? What does it actually mean? I was really privileged last year to hear Julie Bishop speak at a conference I went to. And she actually spoke about John Howard. At the end of every meeting, he used to say, what could possibly go wrong? And it's a really, really good way to look at things. While we can't control everything, I remember on a Friday when I was coaching, we used to have a what-if meeting. And we talk about what if someone got injured, what if the opposition kicked a number of goals in a row, what if one of the opposition best players started to get on top of us. So we really sort of brainstormed around some of the things that might happen. So in your own life, without looking too far forward and without trying to control everything, what likely may go wrong tomorrow? What likely might go wrong in the next week? So at least if you've got a slight understanding of what that looks like, suddenly when it happens, it just doesn't hit you in the head like a ton of bricks.
One thing that is a certainty is that Heinzie and GQ will be here each and every week to serve up the perfect remedies to keep us energised and raring to go. Here they are with a stress-busting breakfast that's the perfect start to the day.
GQ, I got to say I'm feeling extra excellent today because like most days, I started my morning with a nutritious and delicious breakfast packed with protein and energy in the form of eggs. Now tell me, how do you take yours?
My favourite, Heinzie, is an omelette because then I can just add whatever I feel like on that day. But I'm always willing to learn new ways of enjoying eggs.
Well, I think you're going to absolutely love this green breakfast salad because it's a fantastic excuse to get heaps of veggies into the start of your day. Plus, it's got the crunch from the nuts of seeds, and if you're a fan of a gooey yolk, this is the breakfast for you.
Well, Heinzie, I've been examining some figures. Do you know 90% of Australians enjoy eggs every day? That's 15 million eggs a year, 230 eggs per person.
Wow, mate, that is egg extraordinary. I mean, they are the OG superfood with all the nutrients that are packed in there.
Well, as you said, Heinzie, eggs are very important for energy production. And that's because of their content of vitamin B5, which helps in energy production along with the other 7 B group vitamins. And Heinzie, vitamin B5 is also important to help us combat environmental stress that's all around us.
Stress. I mean, we all suffer from it and it is unavoidable. So how good is it that we can get nutrients from our food that help us manage it?
Well, foods are important, but it's also opportune to turn to the herbal world for stress. And in that regard, one of the kings of Ayurvedic medicine is ashwagandha.
Mate, even the name sounds relaxing. Carry on.
Well, ashwagandha is native to India and Northern Africa, and it was used in powdered form, their roots and leaves, for over 6,000 years to alleviate stress. Now, we class in the herbal world, Heinzie, we class ashwagandha as an adaptogen. It has 3 main functions. It helps us manage stress. It helps promote energy levels, and more particularly, it helps encourage mental clarity.
Oh, mate, it sounds like a super shrub. Should I be sprinkling some of that on these eggs to take it to the next level?
Well, this isn't really a common herb we find in the pantry, Heinzie, so ashwagandha is always best in supplement form.
That's okay, GQ. You're forgiven this time. That's because my green breakfast salad is already extremely nutritious and I'm just excited to tuck in because I'll be heading out later today to do some egg-cercise.
Heinzie, you absolutely cracked me up.
See, there we go. Now you're getting into the spirit of things.
The A to Z of Vitamins is brought to you by Go Healthy. For superior supplement for healthy energy and vitality, try New Zealand's #1 premium supplement, now available in Australia.
Heinz is going to be back a little bit later to explain the difference between eggs. You got that?
I did. I loved it. Explain it.
Well, there's a lot going on with eggs. Did you know, Jo?
I can't wait to find out what.
Stay tuned. Hey, but up next, we look at the Carlton Football Club and how they're kicking goals for gender equality right here on the House of Wellness. In recent times, the AFL has taken a giant step forward in gender equality. The AFLW kicked off in 2017, which was just fantastic, Jo. And we're seeing more female umpires, commentators, and Richmond's Peggy O'Neill became the first female AFL club president, and she's helped steer the Tigers to 2 club premierships. Round 11 of this year's competition marked another huge step forward. Carlton players donned orange socks in their match against the West Coast Eagles. It's the Blues' way of raising awareness for gender equality for the prevention of violence against women. Jo?
Orange is the international colour of harmony and is Carlton's response to the alarming statistics surrounding family violence in Australia. In this country, on average, 1 woman is killed every week at the hands of a current or former partner, which is a shocking thing to hear out loud. It highlights the need for massive change.
Yeah, those stats always just make you so sad. This year's lockdowns have made the need to protect women from violence in the home even more pressing. And I caught up with Carlton board member Paddy Kinnersley and the Blue Star midfielder Ed Curnow to find out how we can all pull up our socks to help protect women. Can you tell us a bit about the Carlton Respects program and what it means?
Yeah, Carlton Respects is the Carlton Football Club's community initiative that aims to contribute to an environment of equality and respect across our community for women and girls. And we do that in workplaces, in schools and through our community reach. And it's really important for the club because we know that football, sport in general, but football clubs have enormous reach into the community and we understand how we can contribute to driving change. So it's been a really important area of our work.
The significance of orange and the orange socks, can you tell us the history behind that, Paddy?
Yeah, orange is the international colour for harmony, and for the Carlton Respects campaign, it's about how do we promote gender equality and respect for women in the communities and families we work with, who are our fans, who are our sponsors, who are our supporters. So it's a really nice alliance between the colour and the job.
Patty, we hear the term gender equality a lot. It's a commonly used phrase. Can you just break down exactly what that means?
Yeah, I do think it's a bit of a jargon word, but actually what we're talking about is in a country like ours where we say everyone has a fair go to be their best, we're actually realising that that's not the case for women. Gender equality is about us saying, how do we create an environment where everyone is free to thrive? How do we make sure everyone is respected? So that's about whether women and girls want to play what sport they do. How do they get into senior roles? How are they present in our world in a way that says every day we're going to promote and normalise gender equality in our lives?
And Patty, I try and live up to that on a daily basis in my own home. I'm a father of 3 boys and a daughter. She's 15 years of age, and occasionally you might talk in the general terms and on the phone, and you'll say I'm with the boys. And if she's in earshot, I get the most quick, severe feedback you've ever heard in your life, Patty, and I deserve it. Sometimes you're not trying to, but I'm encouraged that the 15-year-old girls, they're not copying it. They, are refusing to hear anything apart from equality. So hopefully that's a good sign.
Yeah, I think it is a good sign, but I think it's also important, Luke, that what you touched on there is that community attitudes and expectations are changing. So we will make mistakes. All of us will make mistakes about the language we use, but it's important for us to go, oh, yeah, that's right. Now I think about it, that's not right, and we make change. And we do need to be a bit compassionate on ourselves. Although those of us who are in leadership roles and who have influential roles, we need to learn quickly and make changes as much as we can.
The topic of masculinity, what does that mean in 2020?
I think in the past it's been a subject that people haven't been comfortable talking about, because anytime we talk about masculinity, men particularly, feel like you're being critical. I think what's really important to say is that when we talk about a certain type of masculinity contributing to violence against women, we're talking about a rigid adherence to a certain version of masculinity, the version of masculinity that says men must be stoic, they mustn't cry, they mustn't seek help, they must always be strong and brave, but they also must be in charge of women and they must be the boss. So it's that version of masculinity that actually underpins violence against women, because men who adhere to that particular version usually also believe in disrespect to women. They don't believe women are as valuable as men. Sporting clubs have a great opportunity to explore that version of masculinity, because what we see on the field that requires courage, requires people backing into the pack or, being there and getting smashed by somebody coming in or whatever, that's part of the game. But that doesn't mean that a man has to carry that off the field.
Tell us about pulling on the orange socks in the Carlton Respects inaugural game now. It's a big part of the calendar for Carlton. What's it like running out in that game?
Oh, it's great to represent what is a really big cause for our footy club in the Carlton Respects program, where we go out to the community and promote gender equality, and then we get to wear the orange socks in a game and hopefully stimulate some conversation on the home front amongst families around building strong relationships between siblings and parents, and relationships between men and women.
You have a great influence, Ed, as a role model, the type of person you are. Do you feel like you're making an impact in this, really significant space?
Yeah, I do, Das. We get out to a lot of the schools now in the northern suburbs and northern region of Melbourne, and so I think just getting to that many touch points and delivering our program is bound to have an influence in promoting gender equality. What are some of the questions you get asked in schools when you're talking about Carlton Respects? A lot of the kids generally like to ask about some like my brother. Usually they see the Carlton Footy Club come in and they see me there and they go, "You, Charlie?" So I spend the first part of the meeting explaining that, and we talk about I like to relay stories of what it was like growing up for myself with a few sisters and how we all loved our sport and doing sport together and encouraging each other to do the best we could, and just showing the support and being there for one another.
Hey, Ed, congratulations on your form on field. You're having another sensational year. Your club's in great shape, but I think this legacy that you're really right behind in supporting gender equality, Carlton Respects, through our watch. Congratulations, Ed. You're doing a great service to the community. Congratulations.
Thanks, Luke. Cheers for having me.
November 25th is the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women. And you can get behind Carlton Respects by logging on to bluesfoundation.org.au.
So my hair's been a little bit dry and damaged, particularly at the ends with all the winter heating and then the change in season. So I'm going to give it an intensive revamp to strengthen, nourish and repair with the Akin Miracle Shine Mask. The Akin hair mask is scientifically proven to reduce breakage by 58% and increase moisture by 84%. And you can use it as a pre-shampoo treatment. You can also leave it in for 5 to 10 minutes after shampooing, or to treat damaged ends on towel-dried hair like I'm going to. And you can use it on all hair types, including curly. You just rub it into your scalp and through to the ends of your hair. Oh, it smells amazing. The Akin hair mask is an award winner too, taking home the title of Prevention Best of Beauty 2020. And of course, it's always important to shop locally, and I love that Akin is Aussie made and owned. It's also 100% vegan and cruelty free and free of any nasties, which is really important to me in a product. You can almost feel the moisture going into it. So now we leave the mask on for about 30 minutes. If you want a really intensive treatment, you can even leave it on overnight. For my 30 minutes, I'm going to sit here and ponder the joys of avocado, because the mask is filled with Australian avocado oil, good for inside your body, but also beautiful for enriching your hair. And it also has Australian jojoba oil and squalene. Oh my gosh, guys, look at the miracle shine. My hair feels completely different. Look at this silky, nourished hair. It smells amazing. And you get 30 minutes of pampering at home. What more could you want? So good.
Well, this year's pandemic has made us all look at exactly what constitutes an essential service. Healthcare workers, the police, supermarket staff, and many more are jobs society simply cannot function without, Jo.
And we are all incredibly grateful to each and every one of them, Das. STC services do the jobs few of us want to think about, and even less of us would be capable of carrying out. As specialised trauma cleaners, they dress head to toe in hazmat suits and enter crime scenes, squats and industrial accident sites. Here's an insider's peek at their amazing work. Can you explain to us what sorts of cleaning you do as trauma cleaners?
So we do a range of different cleaning. We specialise in hoarding and squalor cleanups. We offer cleanups for deceased estates. We give domestic cleans to people with disabilities and mental health issues. We do trauma cleanups, so your crime scenes, your suicides.
Aggravated burglary.
Yeah. And now we're doing COVID cleans as well.
So what does a deep clean actually mean?
So they've recommended that when it comes to COVID, what actually kills it is the cleaning, the detergent solution. So that has to stay on the surface for at least 10 minutes to actually do its job. Then you need to wipe it down, make sure that surface is dry before you then do your application of disinfectant. So it is quite time consuming when you think about if you're going to, say, an aged care facility into a resident's room, all the little trinkets and everything that they have around them has to be wiped down and cleaned, and it can be quite time consuming and labour intensive.
And even like the bottoms of chairs and fixtures that get moved around the room, or the tea trolleys, the beds, you know, they have the tables, make sure the wheels are cleaned. So we're not got droplets on the floor and then we're transferring them across the floor. So every little detail has to be looked at.
And what sorts of environments are you going into to do the deep COVID cleaning?
They vary from houses to
shop
fronts to childcare centres, to aged care centres, police cars, police interview rooms, police cells. So it's a myriad of different things, and every one of them is sort of different, if you know what I mean.
What about the protocols? I imagine you have to be absolutely thorough and to the letter every time you enter an environment. What sorts of protocols are you following?
Firstly, you've got to make sure that all the equipment that we take into the place is disinfected and clean to start off with, because, again, we don't want to cross-contaminate everything. Making sure that the staff are putting on their PPE in the correct procedure. There's a certain way to do it to make sure that the clothing underneath is protected. Again, then taking it off. So making sure they're not cross-contaminating when they're taking it off, making sure all the tools and equipment are decontaminated before they even leave the site, and again, when they go into the cars and the vehicles to leave.
Are there government regulations in place for COVID-19 cleaning?
Unfortunately, no. And this is the problem with the standard right across the board. STC, I can say, hands down, are 100% accredited. But I worry about those that aren't accredited.
And that's where, like, we've got guidelines and regulations by the Department of Health and Human Services to go off, but there's no specific training or policies, procedures to follow in terms of bio-recovery cleaning.
Yeah.
Is doing a deep clean like this physically difficult? Is it exhausting work?
It's, look, any cleaner will tell you any cleaning is exhausting, you know, because you're moving, you're bending, you're moving furniture away, you're moving it back and everything like that. So it is a very physical job.
And I imagine very time consuming.
Yes, it is time consuming because everything has to be done. You can't afford to miss anything. Otherwise, you're liable.
And is it a costly process?
$6 or $7 a square metre, which is reasonable because you're getting people out all hours of the day or night, and because you never know when it's going to come.
So how much might an aged care facility cost to clean?
Again, depending on how much needs to be cleaned, it could be anywhere between $3,000 up to $20,000. It just depends on what needs to be done.
On the amount of work involved, the amount of rooms, the amount of areas, and also with that there comes a lot of waiting around too, because they've got to move residents from one area to another area.
Does cleaning in fact kill the virus?
Yes, because of the chemicals, the way they're made, it actually kills the virus.
And what kinds of products do you use for a detergent and a disinfectant?
If we tell you, we'd have to kill you. We research these products big time, and that's how we get to the better product after better product. And that's why now the products that we use, we closely guard them because they put us in the top echelons of the cleaning business. So that's a trade secret. So we can't go there.
However, for people at home, just a standard detergent will be fine, and a disinfectant that's specified for killing coronaviruses.
Up next, Heinzie separates the white noise from the golden goodness when it comes to ethical eggs. That's right after this. Welcome back to the House of Wellness. All right, Joe, I want to ask you, what are your go-tos or your deal breakers when it comes to choosing products at the supermarket? You go by price, is it packaging, environmentally friendly, Australian made? What's the criteria?
I always aim for Australian made and as locally produced as possible. I want to know that it hasn't come far to my table, and as little packaging as possible. I really hate the plastic that you see on a lot of our produce.
Well, one of the most confusing products for me is eggs. I know free range is better than caged, but do you go for the omega-3 or organic? Very, very hard to work your way through.
Well, don't worry
eggs.
so much about that, Darcy, because Heinzie can solve that huge dilemma for you. Here he is to crack open the facts on eggs.
Have you ever stood in the egg section of the supermarket and felt completely overwhelmed? I get it. It can be totally confusing. And I mean, with terms like farm fresh, barn laid, cage free, does anyone know what they actually mean? And while egg packaging can carry many different terms, I mean, we're talking on the front, the top, the side, even underneath the packaging, the key thing we're looking for is that labelling across the front. The term free range means the chooks get access to outdoors. The farmer opens up the shed in the morning, they're free to come outside and roam, and then in the afternoon they go back inside. Now, there is a law in Australia that says there can be no more than 10,000 hens per hectare to be classified as free range. But some farmers go to the next level and keep that at a cap of 1,500 hens per hectare. Now, labelling laws in Australia means that you have to show your stocking density on the pack. So if you want to support those farmers that are perhaps doing a little bit more for the animal welfare, look for that 1,500 on the pack and get cracking. Cage eggs are from hens that have no access to the outdoors. They live inside cages in climate-controlled sheds. They account for 40% of egg purchases in Australian supermarkets. Barn-laid eggs are also known as cage-free eggs. Now, they also live in a climate-controlled shed, but this time not in cages. They've got no access to the outdoors, but they are free to roam and perch. When it comes to organic eggs, the main difference between organic and free range is that the eggs are produced without the use of any chemicals. Now, there's not many organic egg producers here in Australia, so make sure you're getting the right stuff by looking for the Australian Certified Organic logo. So you might have seen omega-3 enriched eggs. That's when the farm chooses to put a fish oil supplement in the hen's food, therefore upping the omega-3 content of each egg. Now, there's a few terms I want you to be aware of. The first is hormone-free. Well, the good news is no hormones are used in egg production and eggs are naturally hormone-free. And if you see the terms farm-fresh eggs, well, there's no farm-fresh farming system. It's just a fancy marketing term to say that these eggs are fresh from the farm. For me, it has to be free range, and if I can find them and afford them, I go organic as well. Every time I spend money on eggs, it's a vote with my dollar for ethical farming practices that could give these hens a happier and healthier life.
Well, I found that very interesting, Joe, because choosing the right ethically sourced eggs is something I've always struggled with. So, Hines, you're very informative to me around free range, how much space you want to have your eggs grown in a safe and healthy way.
Yeah, you want happy little ladies laying your eggs, don't you?
Yes, that sums it up very succinctly. Thanks to everyone. That's our show for today. Head to our website to find out more about anything we've covered on the show. Tune into the House of Wellness radio show with Joe and GQ every Sunday, plus your podcast with Emma Murray's going strong as always, Joe.
Absolutely. It's called Best of You in the House of Wellness. And we had Paul and Tammy Roos on the show earlier today talking about how to face the uncertainties that we're all facing at the moment. And there's lots of that in the podcast. So check it out at podcastoneaustralia.com.au.
Thanks for watching. And as always, thanks to our great friends at Chemist Warehouse. Stay safe, stay well, and we'll see you next time.